Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Three Idiots Talk Aquariums podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in. We really appreciate the support. I was just wanting to quickly say, if you haven't already, please make sure to like and subscribe and follow and all that good stuff. It really helps us out. So that would be cool. But yeah, I mean, to start us off, what have you guys been getting up to in the world of fish keeping? Have you had any exciting stuff going on recently in your shop/fish room? Someone talk.
You go first?
You go first. You go first. I haven't had a lot.
Okay. My Shelly spawned again. Did I say that last week? I can't remember. Shelly
I
spawned
don't think
again.
so.
So yeah, they've got fry, which is cool. So I just put them into their bigger 3-foot tank over the 2-foot one with some sand and stuff like that. And it may have already been on eggs, or they might have spawned straight away. But it's pretty cool. Little minuscule Shellies swimming around again. So that's going on, and something else happened. Oh yeah, I got the glass for my Carolina tank, but as you guys know, it turned out to be safety glass, so I've rejected that. And we've got another piece coming, but unfortunately, I think that means not going to make the deadline.
Oh,
This
can't
means
complain
that
then.
I think it's grown from singing to basically singing, dancing, like a whole cabaret show, I think, almost.
Yeah, I'm not putting on a performance. I draw the line at putting on makeup and a costume.
But you look so pretty with your haircut.
But I don't need makeup and a costume to make me look even pretterier. I'm pretty the way I am.
I think the bearded lady from This Is the Greatest Show would be awesome.
It ain't happening.
Busted it out, you know.
No, I'm happy to sing. I said I would. In fact, I didn't even say that I'd sing. Someone else said you can sing a song, and it was never my original thought. And I was like, okay, sure, why not go ahead with that?
When are you in Auckland again?
2 weeks, I think.
Oh, I think that maybe you could delay it, and Young Cam could put a top hat on, and he could be the other guy from The Greatest Show, and you could do a whole thing together. You know, how for you?
Sounds like a plan. I look forward to it.
It's not happening.
I would say I'm surprised, but King of DIY has let us down. You know. So
to be fair, I had everything timed perfectly if the glass had arrived the way it was meant to arrive.
Yeah, that is unfortunate. I mean,
yeah,
that's out of your control, at least.
Absolutely out of my control.
Out of your control, but also conveniently good because now you have to do a performance for all of everyone. So you know,
it's not conveniently good for me. I can assure you that.
What have you been up to, Ryan?
Nothing. No, just
Cool
feeding the fishes, breeding the fishes. You know, just chilling. Yeah, nothing.
Have you had any more trophy spawns?
No.
So you just got the 1 or 2 or whatever it was?
Yeah, there's none holding at the moment. That one didn't go anywhere. That was still breeding. So I don't know what they're up to. You can ask them. They're behind me.
Hate the things.
Yeah. I love to hate them, but it's good. It's good to have something that it's not just add water.
Just a quick question: you've got male and females in there?
Yeah.
And you've tried turning them on and off again?
Yeah.
Then I'm out of ideas.
They don't like it when you turn it off. I tried to kill them the other day when the power went off.
Yeah.
And the aeration didn't get turned back on when the heating got turned back on.
So it wasn't like some sort of a euphoric life awakened moment for them when the power went off?
No. They just got a bit slower when they got a little bit colder, and then they sped up again. And they had no oxygen because the water got warm. And they all decided to gasp at the surface, as they do.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, they survived, so that's the main thing?
Yeah, I think I lost one. But,
lame.
Which was disappointing.
It's not ideal, yeah.
Nah.
Oh, well, yeah, I've not been up to too much interesting stuff, I don't think. Just been kind of doing my thing. Had a whole bunch of cool Africans come through the shop, but pretty much they're all gone now. Well, they'll definitely be gone by the time this podcast comes out, but at the time of recording, I got just a couple of them left, but there was some real cool stuff, which is always good fun. So yeah, I mean, that's probably about the most exciting thing that's happened to me recently in the world of fish keeping. So yeah. Oh,
Yeah, and I've had a couple of people message me too that have been listening, so that's cool too. It means that Cam's like fake profiles aren't the only ones in our metrics, so there are actually other people listening.
Or maybe Cam's just messaging you from his fake profiles.
Yeah, he's created an elaborate scheme and been messaging me for the last 5 years from people that I've met that live in different parts of the country.
Just for this moment.
He's doing he's got a Russian bot factory, and then he's hiring actors to send out to you and stuff. It's an elaborate scheme, man.
I've mastered AI.
Yeah, exactly.
He's mastered AI, but he's already just got power. Somehow I think that's unlikely. But anyway.
Comedy, eh? Well, so the main topic for today's discussion is going to be around hybrids and man-made fish. So kind of the differences and similarities between them and all that kind of thing. So I don't know. I thought Ryan could explain about hybrids, and then maybe Cam could explain about what we mean by man-made fish, just to give people a bit of an overview about what we're actually talking about. So I don't know if you want to go take hybrids first, Ryan, and go from there.
Okay, a hybrid basically is just breeding two different species of fish together. Now, to me, there's not an awful lot of difference between a hybrid and a man-made fish, but anyway, that's just the way I look at it. But it is an interesting thing where you'll end up with a fish like an OB peacock or a dragon's blood. And I had someone come the other day to buy fish off me, and he said, "What's that?" And I said, "I don't know. I got it off a mate. It's a hybrid. It's cool. Whatever. It's not been sold as pure." He goes, "I don't want hybrids in my tank." And I'm like, "But you got dragon's bloods and OBs." So, so it's it's interesting how people accept some and don't accept some. So, and we'll always go, I think this one will always go round in circles. People will always say, "Oh, it's good because we're increasing the genetic diversity." And then people like me will go, "No, because we're just muddying the waters." And then in a couple of generations, someone's going to be IDing that as one of the parents and selling it and breeding it with other random stuff. And then we just end up with nothing good left in the country, So we've seen it happen tons of times. So, yeah, I mean, there's no right or wrong answer. At the end of the day, you put your fish in your tank and you can do whatever you like. But it's when they leave your tank that it causes problems, in my mind. But what do you reckon, Cam? What's your definition of a man-made fish as opposed to a hybrid?
So, for me, a man-made fish is something that has actually been spawned with intent. So you've got A fish, B fish, you're trying to get the characteristics out of A fish into the B fish or into that line or whatever, and you've got a target in mind to produce something like OBs and like dragon's blood, for example. You've got a goal of making something, and then you're eventually down the road making sure things are breeding pure and true. With a hybrid is just a couple of fish got together. Oh, look, it's had babies, and now I've got these weird-looking fish or what have you. If that makes sense. It's about the intent.
So you're saying a man-made fish is a hybrid with a intended goal, and probably with generations of line breeding to sort of fix a specific sort of trait in that fish. Is that what you're saying?
Or looking for a trait or something along those lines. So, most line-bred guppies, for example, are man-made variants, but you put 4 different types of guppies together, and you've got a whole bunch of hybrid fish that have turned up with no intent.
No, they're the same. To all intents and purposes, they're the same species, so they're not a hybrid. They're all guppies. They're all the same species.
But they're a different line and a different strain.
But they're not hybrids because they're the same species. They're the same fish.
But they're a different line and different strain, so they're different again. But that's where they're coming into the man-made, when you're trying to produce something of the same sort.
I still think that's different. If you're breeding the same species, you're not producing a hybrid.
So
If they're all guppies, I mean,
what are you producing if you're putting two different fish together?
You're just breeding unrelated fish.
You're breeding a nondescript fish of some sort.
Well, you're crossing the strains, but you're not actually creating a hybrid. You're still creating a guppy. You're not creating a guppy across a swordtail or guppy across a molly or something, you know?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I think for intents and purposes, two different same things. If that makes sense, that makes no sense.
I think it's
what
different
you're
in my
saying,
mind, but it's interesting.
I think what you're saying, Cam, is that man-made fish don't necessarily have to be a hybrid. They can be a hybrid, but they can also, like, it's like a Venn diagram, you know, like it doesn't necessarily have to be two different species, but two different sort of sorts,
Strains.
if that makes sense. So
You're
that could be
mixing color
yeah,
strains.
so like
type thing.
that could be different species. It could be different color varieties, whatever. But it encompasses more than just the specific species that we were talking about.
Yeah, I was trying to get away from using the term mutt or mongrel because I don't think that's very nice to call fish mutts and mongrels. Albeit that's kind of how you'd consider a dog, but I just try and get away from using those words. But essentially, yeah.
I use different words for them. Starts with shit and ends in it. But anyway.
Wait, what? I don't even think that makes sense.
Shitfish. I call them shitfish, but anyway. But I wouldn't have a problem with people breeding two different strains of guppies together because they're guppies, whatever. You're not producing a hybrid.
Yeah, but you're not a guppy person. That's why.
Yeah.
I've done guppies before. More dabbled with them.
Yeah, but that doesn't make you a guppy person.
I'm not a guppy person. Nah.
You could put like betters in there for the same reason. Like a better person go, how dare you put that with that or leave those two together to spawn and produce such horrible fish? Why aren't you trying to keep or work towards this sort of thing? Just like you do with your Africans.
Well, I guess the interesting thing there is, so if you were to intentionally go and cross fish, what I've seen a lot, I can only really speak from the African Cichlid world, but I've seen it in other things too, is a lot of people are just breeding, I hate to go on about it, but breeding a lot of rubbish together with no idea of the actual breed standard that they're actually supposed to be breeding to. You know, like if you're selling something as a Jacob Freiberger on a point or whatever, you need to go back to source, back to the lake, and look at what that fish should look like in the lake, and that is your to me that's your source. That's what it should look like. You know, like it can't. A lot of people say, "Oh, my fish looks different to wild because it's line bred," and it's like, what? So it's a different shape and a different color, so it's no longer what you're actually saying it is. You know, like, and it just I think that's the interesting discussion of a breeder versus a breeder. You know, anyone can get a lot of tanks, anyone can get a lot of fish, but. And I've done it 100 times. People have said, "Oh, mate, you're going to go see this guy. He's got all these fish and all these tanks." I go in there, and they're just tanks and tanks and tanks of hybrids, and he's just made up random names for them. Oh, that's a sunshine. That's a benga. That's this. That's that. Just because they're yellow peacocks. And I'm like, you know. So it's interesting. It's a really interesting thing because the experience comes into it, and also going back to a standard comes into it for me. You know, like.
Does crossing catch points of like a Lanacaras change what the definition of hybrids or man-mades are? Because
that means peacocks, by the way, for people who are listening.
Yeah,
same fish, same family.
It's an interesting one because
is that fall for you?
Because you've just called me on your guppy thing.
Pretty much. pretty much.
Do you know what? Fuck you. Anyway, it's a fair yeah.
Oi, keep it PG.
For me, that would be blasphemy. So it's probably the same as a guppy person crossing strains.
Exactly what my point was earlier.
The hard part, especially with African cichlids, is I don't want to be inbreeding my fish, right? I don't want to be breeding within the same family, but
You'll end up with Cam Scott otherwise.
yeah, yeah. And we definitely know that one's a throwback. But anyway, I think we've killed him. He's muted himself and he's coughing away, spluttering.
He's choking away on something.
Yeah. His deformed tongue is not fitting in his throat properly. But the problem is, like, you know, I've got some really nice strains of peacock that are pure, and I'm 99% sure I know exactly their collection point and where they came from. Unless someone can import those exact same fish again, I can't introduce new blood into that strain, you know, and we just don't get the wild caughts and the F1s and stuff that the rest of the world do. So, and our supply chain is notoriously unreliable and just randomly makes up stuff. So it becomes very difficult. And a lot of breeders have gone out there and gone, oh, well, this is a Jacob Freiberger, this is a Jacob Freiberger, across them to try and increase that genetic diversity, which is a good intention, but all it does is creates random fish, you know. So,
I think sorry. I just quickly say, so in case you're not, you know, if you're not a cichlid person and you're listening, so the basic problem is that any theoretical. So I read this once. I don't know if it's 100% true or not, but the theory is that any Lake Malawi cichlid can breed with any other one. That doesn't, of course, mean that they will. Sometimes they'll just eat each other. But the theory is, like, if two of them spawn, it will create viable fry. So that's where a lot of the hybrids come from. Just as a bit of background information for you, if you're not 100% clued up on the African cichlid world, that is the basic problem. But yeah, go ahead, Cam. I think you were about to say something.
Yeah, just talking about lines before. So, would you consider a different line if you got? I've written down Jacob Freiberger because that's the last one you said. From one shop, for example, you got a colony of them. 2 years later, they had another colony. You bought that. Would you consider that a different line? But the chances are them probably coming from the same exporter within 2 years apart, or would you just say they're still Jacob Freiberger, no matter what, and not a different line?
That's where I'd get my fish geek on, and I'd be like, and this comes down to relationships and knowledge and experience. You know, like if Cam got in fish, I'd say, where'd you get them from? You know, and then he'd go da 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 da, and then I'd go, oh, okay, have they got their own breeders? You know, da 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 da, and you'd do a bit of research into them and figure out where they actually came from, rather than, and sometimes you'll never know, but as from the outside looking in, I would treat them as different fish because you don't know if you don't know where the hell they came from, but often, like if you're buying them from one of the wholesalers who breeds their own fish as well, you could probably deduct and ring, get one of you guys to ring them and say, hey, yeah, those are bred in house from the same breeders, you know. Again, it doesn't mean. Sorry, Karen.
Yeah, I see relatively often breeders saying we've got this from this person and this from this person, so they're different lines. And if you're kind of, this from this shop and this from this shop, but like if you back it up, they've all bought it from the same importer, and the importer uses the same exporter, so it's exactly the same line. So I always find that one quite a wee challenging thing, and an interesting concept of finding a different line of a certain fish.
It'll even go more sort of micro than that. Like, obviously, I buy fish from Ryan, but I not just Ryan, and I also have a lot of like just customers come and try to sell me stuff, and it's like, you know, there might be different sources, but it's like the people trying to sell me fish have bought fish directly from Ryan, so it's like even though they're different sources, it's the same sort of, like, it's just one generation removed, but the same behind that. So it's like a little bit more kind of tricky in that regard. So yeah.
And I can look at if someone comes out and sees me and shows me their fish, I know exactly, a lot of them I know exactly where they got them from, They say, "Oh, this is my German red," and I go, "Oh yeah, I know where you got that from. It's not a German red, but anyway, it's a random red thing." Like it's such a small hobby that we generally, someone sends me a list of fish, I go, "Oh yeah, I know which breeder you bought them from. This will be that, and that'll be that," and so it's such a small hobby in New Zealand, especially that. And again, I've seen it too, like you have, Cam. I've seen people go out. I'm going to buy 2 of these from here, and then I'm going to order 2 from Christchurch, and I'm going to order 2 from Dunedin. And they've just arrived in the country, and they've come from exactly the same importer. And for some fish, that might be a good idea, but they might be wild caught. But then anyway, you can just buy them all from one source because they're all going to be the same source. But generally, if they're tank bred and usually mass produced in Asia, they'll all be related anyway. So you're kind of wasting your time.
Do you think that's something to do with, like, nobody sees the backside of the industry of what's going on? Like, you see, I don't know, 5,000 pet stores within the country and all stocking fish, for example, but people are not aware that there's only 2 or 3 importers actually bringing the fish in. Because they think there's so many fish shops around, they think there's so many importers. It's a different variety.
It's a good intention, though. It is a good intention. I like the intention.
100%. Yeah, I don't disagree.
And they probably read it online, In America, you could buy from 2 distinct different shops, and they would have got them from different suppliers, and you can order them online, and they'll get them direct from the lake, and you do all sorts of cool stuff. Yeah. But
not
New
so
Zealand,
much.
not so much.
I think I don't know. Obviously, it's a bit hard to know if it's like confirmation bias or not, but I think there's a lot more sort of thought for like the general average hobbyist about sort of where, I guess, about like the importers and stuff, like where exactly the fish come from, like even compared to like a few years ago. I don't know, I just see a lot more sort of conversation about it in general, like in Facebook groups or like in person, people asking me questions about it and stuff. It just seems to be a little bit more front of mind than it used to be, for like the very average kind of people. Obviously, for the people like with fish rooms and stuff, it's all kind of pretty similar. But just for like the more average people, I'm thinking something I kind of noticed, but I don't know if it's just like a bias or whatever. But yeah, it's just an interesting thing.
That is cool. I think also as a society, a lot of it's misplaced, but we are going to more sort of be more sustainable and more aware of our world and our environment. Again, a lot of it I think is misplaced or misdirected, but at least people are becoming more aware of stuff, like things that we're doing to nature. So that is cool if someone comes in and goes, "Oh, where does this come from?" And again, I'm not against wild caught fish, not categorically against them, as long as it's done sustainably. How do we find out if it is done sustainably? That's the question. So there are some species I wouldn't touch because I know for sure they're not done sustainably, but we're probably not going to see them in New Zealand anyway because the cost is going to be through the roof, especially for wild caught because they're illegal basically.
And we actually have strict guidelines that won't allow illegal fish to come into the country I know things get through the net, but I dare say that more gets stopped in the facilities than what they do actually get put into the general population and into the public.
I like that through the net analogy. That was good. That was a good. That's good. That was a good fish pun.
Comedy, man.
Look at me using
we're
my
on fire this morning. Yeah, you've only got a very limited vocabulary and you used it well then.
Do predominantly hybrids or man-made in the African cichlid world, but what other areas of fish keeping are a hybrid fish a concern? Like I know that there are some fancy plecos that will crossbreed, so that happens, but it's not that common that it does happen, but it does happen. Obviously, you line breeding your guppies and your bedders and stuff like that, but where else does it happen? Are you aware of it being common in any other sort of lines or species of fish?
So
well, I guess,
I know there's.
Sorry, Karen.
Oh, I was going to say there's a lot of it in the American cichlid side of things as well. Like, this one is one that I'm particularly passionate about. You see a lot of times like the polar parrots, like the polar blue parrots they call them, which is a convict crossed with a blood parrot, and then a blood parrot is what is a blood parrot? Severum plus something else that I can't remember. Midas or something. I don't remember. But like a lot of Americans, then you got like so those would be like hybrids, like those I would say, the polar parrots, and then you can see like, your super red Texas or your flower horns or stuff like that. And then you've got, I know like a lot of Cories will interbreed like Corridoras. Plus you got your like guppies, no, not guppies, what's it called? Platies and swordtails will crossbreed. I
But
don't
they're the
know.
same.
I'm sure there's
they're
more
the same,
things.
same genus, aren't they?
They're the same species, I think, aren't they?
No.
No.
They're the
that's
same genus, but
awkward.
they're not the same species. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah.
awkward.
They're related. They're related. Just they're not that far away related, but they do produce hybrids which look like random
Go on,
mixes in between.
throw the insult at me. They're related in the crossbreeding. I'm waiting for it. How did you not tie that one together?
Honestly, sometimes
He's
the jokes
insulting
just write
himself.
themselves. Yeah.
That's
That's
good.
when you know he's
We've
broken.
got him well trained. We've destroyed him. Now we can build him back up till we want him.
So, what Cories crossbreed? Because that's something I've never really heard of.
What? Sorry.
What Cories tend to crossbreed? Because that's something I'd never really heard of.
I'm pretty sure theoretically they all can. Like all the Corridor species. Like I'm not a Cory expert. Tom, if you're listening, please drop a comment down below telling us which ones. But I'm pretty sure like it's like the same as Africans. Like theoretically they all can. I don't know if like it would depend on like subjectively whether they do or not. But like if they were to, they would create viable offspring.
Okay.
The problem with I think with Cories is you can go as deep into Cories as you can into African Cichlids. Like people will look at them and they'll have like a line missing or a line going sideways or something real distinct and small that makes them a different species. But to the untrained eye, they'll go to one shop and buy some, go to another shop and buy some, but they've come in at different times. Some are already hybrids to start with overseas, and then they come in and then essentially they're not knowing that they're crossbreeding them because they just don't have that depth of knowledge to actually identify them to start with. I
think the problem with Cories is it's, I think, a lot harder to get information than it is with Africans. Like obviously Africans are very popular and there's a lot of like literature and stuff out there, and there's still plenty around with Cories, but not as much, so it makes it a little bit more difficult to find out like those breed standards and stuff, like what actually is going on, like just the actual knowledge. But yeah, I mean, I had probably like 6 months ago, I had someone surrender a bunch of Cories that they said were just like random hybrids, and like you looked at them and you're like, oh yeah, those, like now that you say that, it's very obvious that they are. But I don't know if I would have, like, hard to know in hindsight, but like, I don't know if I would have been able to pick that or not if I hadn't been told straight up. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting question.
I wonder if Cory breeders are like weirdos like pleco breeders.
Yep.
No, less so. At least you'll see a Cory.
I guess they're not always just hiding in the dark under driftwood and stuff, like, waiting to come out at night like vampires, I guess. But I just wonder if that's why the information isn't out there. I mean, African Cichlid breeders are cool, so we're all out there and we're all helping each other, But I just wonder if that's why it is. Don't know.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that anyone who's breeding fish and devoting all these resources to breeding fish is mental. So
it's probably not all the.
It's probably subjective about pleco breeders are weird in a slightly different way. I think we're all freaking crazy.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Okay, I agree. I'll accept that. That's the only time I'll agree with you both.
Yep.
We're all mad. We're all fucking mad.
Yep. So I have I did have a question for Cam, and he's just walked off. So
ask me. I'll answer it. I'll know the answer. The same question.
Well, no, I will ask you a different question.
Because
I don't know if you'll know that. Well, the question. Okay, the question was, so his definition for a man-made fish was about what, like, intent was there. And the only question I was going to say is like, I think you and I have both encountered people who are just intending to breed just, oh, I want more red, or I want to breed something yellow, and then just kind of cross whatever you want into these fish to try and get more red and yellow. But it kind of just ends up being a hodgepodge random mix of just yellow fish or just red fish, rather than like either trying to get something more like stable, I'm going to say, or something more like specific. So the question was, Cam, can you please clarify? But I guess, Ryan, can you please give your opinion, I suppose?
And that's the problem for me. If you're going out there to create something, good on you. Like if you got 20, 30 tanks and 5 years to do it, good on you. Do it, But like if you're just going to randomly breed stuff, the problem is when, like if you breed something, you breed a blue fish and an orange fish and you get a purple fish. It doesn't happen like that, but just say, and then you go, oh, wow, there you go. And then you sell that purple fish and it breeds. It's going to throw out random orange or yellow fish. And people are going to think those random orange or yellow fish are pure because they look pure. And they're going to jump on Google and they're going to go orange peacock. And the first thing that pops up, they're going to go, oh, that's what mine is, And then all of a sudden, that's going to be what it is. And it's going to be bred as that. And then they're going to pick up some random orange peacock females off someone else on Trade Me or another pet shop. And then it just produces a lot of mud, But if those people were committed to actually producing a purple fish and they spent the next 5 years and 20 or 30 tanks actually locking that in and then selling it as a hybrid purple fish, it would be a lot easier for everyone. It'll be fixed.
Yeah, I think
it'll be a genetic trait that's actually fixed,
I think that's a key point there that you kind of mentioned, that I know Cam, in our discussions, Cam has mentioned it before when you said lock it in, which I think is something particularly Cam is quite firm on. So I don't know if you want to talk about that, Cam. Basically, I don't know if you could hear, but to fill you in, we were talking about the sort of intent to breed a man-made fish, and where that kind of could just be breeding all sorts of random stuff to try and get a yellow fish versus trying to get something a bit more specific and then lock it in. So is that something that you think is needed for it to be classed as a man-made fish or not?
Like in consideration of, say, like flower horns, which are man-made, and red devils and stuff like that, like the intent is to work on a goal and then to be breeding something pure towards the end. And that works with like ODs and that kind of stuff as well. You're trying to produce something.
You shouldn't say pure.
From
you shouldn't
something.
say produce something pure. You're never going to produce anything pure from a hybrid cross. But
did I say pure?
Yeah.
Semantics, Matt.
Yeah.
I'd say fixed. I'd say with fixed traits, with fixed appearances, or fixed fixed outcome. You want to have
you've got an end goal in sight, and that's what you're working towards, and you'll produce a whole lot of fish, and they're not going to do something. You're going to cross this one to that one to get this one from that one, and working towards an end goal.
And I've thrown out 20 to 30 tanks 5 years. As a random thing.
Easy.
Also, I mean, you look at Dragon's Bloods; they're still throwing brown fish.
Yeah.
But again, the Dragon's Bloods we've got probably not pure. What's a pure Dragon's Blood? No such thing. It's a hybrid anyway. So again, they're just going to have different strains, different traits, different. They all sort of throw in random stuff. That's why we've got pink ones and red ones and yellow ones and orange ones and all sorts.
And something from that throat, like I said, might be producing Dragon's Blood, and a green one came out of it. So where the heck did the green come from? So then you put that one aside, grow that one out, and try and find something you can go with to try and produce a green line. Like that's all part of the course and all, And it's not just producing something for the sake of producing it, if that makes sense.
And the thing is, like, people that probably maybe don't understand what we're talking about by like fixing the strain and all this sort of stuff. It's basically you breed these fish and then you grow them all up, every single one of them basically, and then you grade them all and you go, right, this one has the right, and it's always a consideration, especially with hybrid African cichlids, the body shape. You've got to have the right body shape and then the right color. And then you've got to choose the right male and female. Sometimes you're breeding back a generation. So you've got your original male or your original female, which is carrying whatever genes you want. You choose the best offspring from them and you breed it back, and then you just keep inbreeding these fish that have got the right traits until you essentially end up with a batch of fry that turn out the same. Looking exactly like you like.
I might be totally wrong, but I believe that, from my understanding, inbreeding is a human issue, not so much an animal issue. Like, we clearly see it wrong to breed with our sister, as an example.
Unless you live in Nelson.
This low-hanging fruit, man. We were all thinking it.
I don't call it sister, but in the animal world, here's a male, here's a female. Let's just survive it. It's not such a big thing. So I think a lot of people get kind of hung up on breeding into family within the fish world, and potentially it's not that needed. It's just part and parcel of how animals work.
I think there is definitely like a point, like where if you inbreed too much, then they all come out deformed with like wonky mouths and like all this kind of stuff.
Of course.
But I think there's a lot more leeway with fish than with humans. Like I read somewhere, like so full caveat, I'm not an expert here. I'm not an expert breeder anyway, but I read somewhere that there's like this thing where you can like, it was like how many generations you can go where it's acceptable, and like humans, it's like it was like pretty much zero. It was like 0 point something, and then with I think it might have been some sort of African cichlid. There was like, there's like maybe 4 generations or something where you could go before it started becoming a problem. And I mean, I'm sure like all different animals, there's different, like it matters different amounts. Like ants all breeding with each other probably is less important than, chimpanzees all breeding with each other. So it's like, it depends on the exact animal and like how their cells form and all this kind of thing about where the problem would lie. But I think fish in general, there is a lot more leeway before you start to run into those problems than with like humans, for example.
I've definitely a lot of my fish are inbred because that's the only way I can get the strains that I've got pure.
Yeah.
But the only fish in my fish room that I have trouble with deformities with is white knights. Like I breed them, that they're also they'll be a man-made fish. Yeah, they'll be a man-made. They're a hybrid fish. There's no natural version of it. They've obviously crossed them with something and then bred them back to get that color and shape, get the shape back. But when I breed, white knight to a white knight female, I get probably 60% deformities. So there's pretty much 60% culls in the lot.
So what would be your expected?
Sorry, what's that?
Does that matter which male or female spawn? Is it one fish that's carrying something, or is it the entire colony that's carrying something?
The entire colony, but they all came from the same place, and they probably all came from the same fish overseas. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like all our fish in the country probably came from exactly the same place.
Someone should have culled something that's then been let go through the strain, basically.
Or it's too far inbred. That there's just no genetic. The fish themselves, that are good, are strong.
Yeah,
like they're not weak, sickly fish. They're not. You've seen them before when they're bred poorly and they're just horrible things. They're still strong, but the ones that obviously they just be mangled, twisted up things. They don't never survive or never going to do anything.
So with that, just for a bit of background information for the people, is if you're breeding something like, I don't know, normal, like maybe an F1. F1 means like first, like from wild caught parents. So like the first captive generation, basically, and then the numbers go on. But basically, how much would you expect from, like, if you're breeding from like an F1 colony, how much would you expect, like how many deformities, like as a percentage wise or something, would you normally expect on like a, I don't know, peacock or something, average peacock or something?
Oh, for my normal breeding, I'd expect like 1 in 1,000 type thing. Like I wouldn't expect much. Yeah. Normally, I'd be
Like a
looking around
very
my
low
tanks,
amount.
and everything would be perfect. Occasionally something without an eye, or a slightly twisted mouth, or something like that. But nothing like these things are so bent up they can't even swim. They're fucked.
Yeah,
Basically.
and then so those end up as food basically.
They go back into the circle of life like the Lion King,
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense.
The Hakuna Matata.
The F system is the predominantly African Cichlid one, isn't it? Like
The
it applies to everything, but it's African Cichlids that's mainly disgusting, isn't it?
No, it's used everywhere. It is used everywhere, but it's used differently depending on how you interpret it. Like, for a lot of breeders, if their F1 could, like, if they were line breeding, the F1 would be their first generation that they'd started line breeding. You know what I mean? So they use it that way. Like, if you were trying to create a fish, you'd say this is first generation cross. You see it a lot in the flower horn world too, where you see like a F1 red dragon or whatever it is. Which gets really confusing because for me, either F1, F2 is just the wild system, but a lot of breeders use it to denote the generations of that they've been working on it, or that they've been crossing or breeding back to the same fish.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit confusing in that regard.
At what point does the F system become insignificant? Like F2, F3, F4, where do you go? Well, it doesn't really matter now.
Overseas, they say F3.
Yeah.
But in New Zealand, I'd say it's relatively relevant all the way through, because even if we've got F5 fish, they're probably better than F100 or F150 out of Asia. You know what I mean?
So would an F3 be, here's the wild caught parent, they've had fry, these fry are now F1, they've then spawned and they've had fry, so that becomes F2, is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
So not wild caught, here's the first spawn F1, here's the second spawn F2, here's the third spawn F3.
No.
The line of this is the first spawn that's then produced becomes F2, the second one becomes F3, etc., correct?
Yeah.
I thought so. Just clarifying that.
Because they refer to wild fish as F0 usually, in a lot of places. So
or W0,
that's how the
something like that. Yeah. But yeah, F0.
Yeah, so that's how it clarify. That will clarify it, I think, for a lot of people.
So, like you said before, bent spines and stuff like that, which is really, really common in the guppy world. A lot of people claim that it's inbreeding, which it potentially is. I believe that's a bit of a misconception, and that it's there's probably a bit of genetics in there, but it's also a nutritional thing, and the females aren't getting the requirements of what they need to produce proper fry when they're producing. So, do you think that your white knights that are producing sort of wonky donkeys, it's fully genetic, or do you think it's something that's coming through feed-wise, water-wise, or something like that could be contributing as well? And is that something that happens in other worlds that aren't just guppies?
That's an interesting one. I by powers of general deduction, in that even though they're a man-made fish, I've got fryery, which is predominantly what they are, and I don't get any deformities in them. I'd say nutritionally,
by the way.
Yeah, I'd say that nutritionally and water conditions and stuff, everything's fine there. With your guppies, I definitely agree that probably it's a combination of poor genetics. Like, people have bred from the wrong fish. I got a bunch of Lawanda that, unfortunately, the original breeder bred from a bent-faced male and a wonky-faced male. So now I'm the last ones that are pure that I can trace in the country. So I'm just having to breed them and grow out the fry and hope that they're not deformed, or that I can line breed it
out over time,
or that I can line breed out the deformity. Yeah. Otherwise,
they'd be carrying it for decent little generations.
Yeah, so far I've been quite successful because I do have some that aren't deformed. I have like 2 females and a male that aren't deformed, so I'm just taking the pride from those ones.
Really, really pretty looking fish.
They're a cool fish, and
They are.
there are a couple of strains around of them that people claim to be lawandas, but I don't believe they're 100% legitimate. But again, it's just what you have to do, because I believe these ones are legit. I've traced them back to the wild caught import, so they're probably the best that I can find anyway.
Yeah.
Unless someone else imports some more. So,
Oh, fingers crossed then, eh? So yeah, what?
Oh.
You what? Sorry.
Far away.
Oh, so I was gonna say, so when it comes to the man-made fish, stuff like your, say like a flower horn, for example, like a blood parrot, or even like OB peacocks and like pink dragon's blood, all this kind of thing. Do we, in your guys' opinion, have the same sort of, I'm going to say obligation, but I don't know if it's an obligation, for like a breed standard, because it's not trying to go, because you're not aiming at anything, or is it just like a free-for-all, just like wing it and do whatever you think looks cool? What do you guys reckon about that question? Particularly, so like the things I'm thinking of particularly is things like flower horns, blood parrots, polar parrots, that kind of thing, like the really like out there kind of things. Like at least with a lot of Africans, the body shape is aiming for the same, but the things where it's like those things where there's nothing at all and it's just completely open season. What do you guys reckon?
Yeah, I find that one interesting, because it's like I've seen people do it online, obviously in the African world more. That's not a pure dragon's blood. I'm like thinking, what is a pure dragon's blood? We can't reference wild for that. So, like, it should be a peacock shape, but apart from that, and it should be yellow base, but apart from that, what is the standard? How can you say it's not a pure one? How can you say it's a good one or a bad one? So, yeah, for me, for dragon's bloods and OBs, as long as they're the right shape, then all bets are off, because there is no breed standard. For those flower horns and stuff like that, yeah, it's hard. I don't personally like them as fish. I don't have a problem with people breeding them because they're so obviously hybrids. I don't think they're going to cause any confusion or any problems in the hobby. But what is the standard? I guess no bent, deformed fins. Parrots can be like that. They can the bent gill plates and stuff like that, and munted up faces and that. But I guess that's part of the breed. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you say what a good parrot is or what a good flower horn is? Apart from referencing something else overseas, do they have standards overseas for those fish? I don't know.
I'm going to answer your question with a question.
Yeah, I'm answering the question
like
too.
it. I like the way you think.
A lot of these man-made fish are shown in competitions.
Yeah.
Flower horns, parrots, guppies. There's a lot of African cichlid shows, that kind of stuff overseas. So they've obviously got standards that they're trying to conform to when it comes to being judged. So that's where a lot of standards probably come from for these man-mades. So the question then becomes, are these shows that people do, is it the reason why we've got all of these man-made fish floating around the hobby, and is it a positive or a negative thing?
I'm gonna say no, because I don't think those standards are universally held or like completely objective.
Totally disagree. If you look at like better breeders, they work pretty hard on conforming to better show standards for their fish.
I'm thinking particularly of like, so for the example of flower horns, in a show, basically the bigger the cock, and that's KOK, as in the horn on the flower horn.
Yeah, you
basically,
said it on the podcast. Yeah.
Well, I
was going
I didn't
to as well.
invent flower horns. It's not my fault.
Yeah.
So basically, the thing is like as big as that can possibly be, but that's not a conformity. That's like a trying to maximize thing. So like there's no upper, like it's just as big as that can possibly be, whereas it should look like this shape and this size. Excuse me. So I think not having like that's because it's like a just how much can you do rather than a this this picture is supposed to be looking like this. If it's too big, then it's wrong. Cat's having a fight. If it's this too big, then it's wrong. If it's not big enough, it's wrong. It's just like a go as hard as you can, and however big it gets is however big it gets.
I guess we don't really know. I don't personally know a lot about the flower horns, but I've seen there's a whole lot of different strains too. They've got golden dragons, red dragons, and all sorts of cool stuff. I've seen one. I follow a breeder in Thailand that breeds a lot of them and a lot of African cichlids, but he calls one the Fireman's Dream and stuff, which is just like this bright red thing with like blue lines all over it and stuff, which is wicked as, So yeah, that is a hard one for me. How do you actually know what you're breeding towards if you don't actually have? But I guess that also is the cool thing about them, right? Because it allows people.
I'm just throwing that out there.
It gives people latitude. It gives people. I mean, whatever you want to do with your tanks and your fish is cool. As long as it doesn't harm anyone else.
Once you're in that world, once you're in that world, you know what you're looking for. Like going back to the cock, you'll see that this male fish has developed faster than the other one, so you'll hold on to that one for longer and put more time and effort into it. And if it begins to get some sort of giant deformity on its head, then you're going to try and spawn that one to maybe a female that's got a good sized one, for example. So, like, eventually, you know what you're after.
The female had a good sized one.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you'll pick the ones that are growing, and then you'll know what you're trying to go for. Like, it goes down to like the wings on goldfish as well. Like, people are sought after when they're massive and bulbous and stuff like that, which I think is quite gross. But they're sought after that way. And breeders know.
I agree, but then because if we take like an OB peacock for example, then say you're trying to breed at I don't know, you're going for say an orange base OB, then some people you might be trying to breed to more orange with a bit of blue as your sort of competition specimen, but then also you go to a different competition and you might be trying to breed for more blue through it and the orange base, but focusing on the blue rather than focusing on the orange and stuff like that. That's because I don't know what the answer is, but basically I was just trying to say it's subjective.
It's very subjective, and it's down to personal
is the
opinion.
Problem. Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm not going to say the problem. I guess is the question of any of these fish. It could be anything. Think of a fish a domestic fish. It could be completely subjective what people like. And so when you're talking about a natural fish, it's okay, we can compare, a otter point to a wild otter point and see no one can argue that's what an otter point looks like because that's literally how it looks like in the wild. Whereas what does a
definitely the argument.
I'm massively oversimplifying it, but there's otter points, there's wild otter points, so it's that's what they look like. Whereas if I said to someone, what does a yellow base OB look like? I ask 100 people, I'll get 100 different responses. Oh, it's just yellow with a couple spots. Oh, it's a yellow undertone, but mostly blue, or it's yellow but there's white and blue, or whatever. It's not. There's nothing concrete to compare it to, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's different or subjective.
It's hard to get an answer. It's hard to get an answer,
person.
Isn't it? It's hard to get an answer.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got this real cool OB that's got looks like someone's painted the spots on him, and he's got real cool definition on his fins and stuff that I'm breeding from. I don't even know how to describe him, but he's wicked ass. I like him, but some people probably would be like, "Oh, it's not a red or an orange or a yellow. I don't want it." But I think it's cool. So, and I'm breeding it to my German red females to see what comes out, just for fun. But
Yeah, but with intent, I guess.
With intent,
is
with
the
intent.
thing.
But anyway, with OBs, the cool thing with OBs is sometimes you can grow out a batch and they're all not good, or they're all amazing, or some are amazing and some are crap, and some come out just little plain non-colored fish.
And the ones that, even with that, like the ones that you define as crap, is like sometimes people will like them. Like I remember ages ago, you gave me a bunch of a few like what would generally be described as crap OBs, which is just like they have like 3 spots on them and the rest is just like plain. But then some people really like them. They're like, oh my god, this is the coolest thing ever. I'm like, hey, if you like it, that's the main thing. It is technically an OB, I guess, but not an OB like.
They're still OBs, but they're not. How do you define them? What's the So
not the same OB. So I guess.
I was going to put
There
another
you go.
question to throw at you. That's come up from what you just said before.
Fire away.
Cool. So in the hybrid conversation or the crossbreed conversation, if you're pushing back lines, most African cichlids, at least in Malawi, can become traced back to about 4 or 5 different fish. So at what point do they become hybrids as well? Because you're saying the otter point,
Yeah, exactly,
from the wild, but this one could have spawned with something slightly different, so it's carrying slightly different. So all the way, it's got a different genetics and might throw something a little bit different later on down the track.
Yeah, so those that
100%.
don't know about African cichlids, is like there could be a fish. Jacob Freiberg's been thrown out heaps, but there's about 10 strains of them in the wild or something that are all the same species, but a different color strain. Now, so
collection.
How they theorized this is that they were, there was one Jacob Freiberg sort of hanging out, and then for whatever reason something happened, and then the populations got separated. Like maybe there was an underground earthquake or volcanic eruption or whatever it was. There was some natural thing that occurred, and basically the rocks split, and there was a big open water in between them. And now the big predators patrol that water, so no fish can get across that gap basically without getting smashed. So these fish live in the rocks, and then so the 2 different populations, because of whatever reason, different lighting levels, different food, different whatever, maybe the first female that was there preferred a certain male color or whatever, have basically bred over many, many years. I don't know how many years, millions of years, I guess, they're a different looking fish. Similar enough, but different colors and different shapes and all that sort of stuff. So even though they're the same species, they're different fish. They look different. And so someone will go to whatever Otter Point is a reef, is a point in the lake that they go and collect them, and that's where they get the Jacob Freiberg otter points from. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about that.
And that's happened has happened with the conversation, at least with multiple fish like blue and green phantoms. There's a lot of conversation about whether they're the same fish or different fish from different catch points on a river. There's 3 or 4 different sorts of the green gold nuggets as well. Conversations whether or not they're the same fish, different catch points, different foods, different water parameters, all that kind of stuff changes to the same fish to a different fish, so to speak.
And there are people that pull these fish apart, count spines in their fins and the number of teeth they've got and all this sort of stuff to determine and go down to the breed standard, the actual scientific breed standard, and go that is this conclusively. It has this many stripes, it has this many spots, it has this many, whatever's they use to define them. That's way deeper than I'd ever go, but they get that intense to be able to determine, And fish get reclassified all the time. Fish get reclassified all the time.
And Nustris is another one like that. Like there's the starlights and the peppermints.
I was going to bring up bristle noses.
Yeah.
They're probably the most common hybrid that everyone has in their tanks. Because they bring in bristle noses. Bristle noses. What species is a bristle nose? They're imported under a species, but they're all imported. They're all, and then everyone just buys a bristle nose and breeds it. Yep. But to a catfish geek, they're probably not pure. Definitely not pure. But to us, that is a bristle nose.
correct me if I'm wrong, Cam, but I'm pretty sure all the importers just sell them as incestuous species.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From memory.
So, I mean, the people who import them don't even know what the hell they are. So, like, it's just like, free for all, basically. Go to
To
town.
be fair, they probably just buy them as incestuous. Bristle nose, brown,
Oh, yeah.
gold, red, whatever color they want. The
Mm.
size.
And because it's so popular, there's no way to know, like, because there's just so many other things.
There will be people out there that know, and there will be people out there that care. But
guarantee it, 100%.
99%.
Well, no, I mean, like, I was meaning more in the sense of, like, you say all the time with Africans, like, I have no idea what the hell's going on there. Like, I don't know what's gone into this fish. It's just, like, some sort of all sorts. But that's kind of what I was alluding to.
Often with Africans,
yeah,
I can look at a fish and guess what it is and what's gone into it, but I don't like saying it because if I say, well, that looks like a Jacob Freiberger cross, then they Google Jacob Freiberger and they go, oh, that's what it is. Yeah, it's a Jacob Freiberger, because they can see some of the traits in it too once they Google. So I don't like to throw out any ID apart from it's a random hybrid and it looks cool, like enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's cool, but...
I think the thing that kind of, I guess we all have been alluding to and like would agree on is like, I think particularly with Africans, but like with the ones that don't have specific sort of names, is just like, if you're selling them, just like about being honest or like not honest, but like knowing what they are, like, because I sell hybrids all the time. Like I get stuff surrendered or, just buy like a cool red
sometimes
fish.
random stuff happens too. Like I keep some of my females and with males to make up numbers, and sometimes a fry survives, And if it grows up and it's a random nice male, I'll sell it to Cam and for like cheap as, and he'll pass it on cheap as a hybrid, I don't have any
and someone will enjoy it, but
so you're part of the problem.
Like
I don't intentionally do it. I don't intentionally do it, but I don't like killing fish for no reason,
But it's like putting it out there as like, oh yeah, this is like, I don't know what it is. It's some sort of hybrid peacock. It looks cool. If you're just using it for a display fish, it'll be cool and you'll enjoy it. But it is a hybrid. I'm not going to pretend it's something it isn't. Don't breed from it because I have no idea what the heck's going on. But if you're keeping it in your male-only tank and you want to keep it for its whole life and it's just like just a display fish and whatever, then that's fine. I think the problem is more when like I have this random red peacock and I'm calling it, this is my legit German red strain, but it's not. It's just some random thing. That's I think where the problem is.
That's
where people get messed up and get confused about what's actually going on.
Do you think we're going to use Ryan's random hybrid that he sells to you, and that you sell to somebody else, and they've gone, cool, I've got this fish forever, it's a red fish, and then I've decided to get out of the hobby. A breeder comes along and goes, oh, that there looks like a German red, I'm going to use it, and then all of a sudden I'm going to start spawning from it, producing German reds. Do you think that there is an issue?
100%.
I mean, it's definitely an issue, but that sort of thing is always going to happen in the sense that why can't I think of any examples? But like,
well, it's always going to. Sorry, Karen.
You tell people what these things are, and like you say, like this is, maybe you make it like write down a list of like these are all the fish you have in your tank. But in that kind of situation, it could always happen because like someone like that might come in and look at your. Why can't I think of any two fish that are the same color? Like someone might look at your help me out, someone like German red.
No, it's funny.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, you could look at your German red and be like, oh yeah, that German red. Oh, that's another red fish that I can't think of. Like
it's a red empress.
Well, yes, that's
okay. That's a breeder selling in Auckland at the moment. But anyway, carry on.
There's like that's a red empress, and then you get confused because like that people are always, if people are going out there like that, you're always going to have that, and it will happen with anything. But as long as like you're being very clear and like telling people like, okay, this is your list of fish. If you sell it, like you know what you've got. If you know anyone ever asks, you know what you've got. And then if it goes out of there, then that's kind of something you can't control without like, you know, what obviously we're doing with the podcast and everything. It's like trying to educate people.
Control it. You can control it at the source, and that's kind of where my point was. If you guys both care so much about genetics, then why are you not just cutting it off at the pass and not being a part of potential issues?
Well, because that's what I was saying is like it would happen. That same scenario could happen with two like pure in quotation mark strains of like that, you know, because like especially with Africans, like a lot of fish look the same, like or very similar. So it's like, oh, that yeah, I don't know why I can't think of any examples, but like that.
But we're also not intentionally we're not intentionally going out there breeding tanks and tanks and tanks of hybrids, calling them stuff. It's just like I'm talking the odd fish every now and then that comes through, and I'm like, oh crap, I should have got rid of that. But anyway, it's actually quite cool. Someone will enjoy it. The problem with it is the New Zealand market is flooded with them. You know, like you know, the odd one that Cam and I throw out there unintentionally is not going to make any difference when all the fish imported to the country are hybrids anyway, and poorly ID. So pretty much all of them anyway.
Your odd one here or there, and then someone else's odd one here or there, and someone else's odd one, and all of a sudden it just continues to bubble away. Why is it not just being cut off at the pass? Why just gone? It's not. It shouldn't be around. It shouldn't be in it. Let's just move it on. I understand not wanting to kill fish for no reason.
I don't like killing them, to be honest. Is the main thing. You know. But yeah, I definitely removed quite a few from the gene pool. But this is just the odd one. And Cam also obviously gets a lot surrendered as well. But
yeah, you know. I say like when I say I buy them like off Ryan, it's like maybe every time I'll go, like I'll buy one every third time I go pick up fish. But like genuinely, so like I'd probably get fish surrendered pretty off, like, you know, I'd maybe get like 4 or 5 a week, say, peacocks, and you know, I'd maybe once every few months get something that would look like be considered pure. Like pretty much they're all just random crap, because particular importers and wholesalers who sell a lot of volume sell all of them as just random assorted hybrids, and they're coming in and it's like someone's like, can you rehome my fish? Like, can you take it? Like, I can't, you know, it's like, it's, you know, causing trouble in my tank, or like, you know, I like it, but like, I don't, you know, I have to move house or whatever. It's like, I don't want to kill that fish. Like, that sucks. And like, it's fine. Like maybe it's got, you know, some nice red color and stuff and someone will enjoy it. But I think there's a difference between selling that as like a Eureka red or just like random red fish. If you want it, you'll enjoy it, kind of thing.
And I've got no problem with people enjoying hybrids either. You're saying the same thing. Yeah. If people want to enjoy a fish, right? Just don't misidentify it. You know what I mean? That's the key thing here, right? You know,
if that person, you know, has to get out of the hobby for some reason, then when they're selling their fish, they know it's that, like, this is a random fish. And it's like, you'll never be able to, like, 100% stop it anyway, like, regardless. Like, people always misidentify stuff. But if the education is there and, like, I choose to believe that people will always do their best. So, like, the people intentionally calling it something it's not, or someone coming along and not knowing what it is and insisting it's something different is a minority. So it's just about like educating people as much as possible that that's what it's actually is and that's what it means for that specific, you know, situation.
And it's an interesting one too, because there are breeders out there that have tanks and tanks full of random fish that just made up names and they're pushing them and people are recommending them and they've got some nice fish, but they're all just hybrids. And it's funny. It was also, I've always wondered, I was like, if I go into whatever, some store, like a real prominent store, and they're selling a fish and it isn't what it is that breaking like some sort of consumer law? You know what I mean? Like, it's a hard one to prove, but are they ripping me off somehow? You know, like I've always wondered it. I'm like, if fish are products and people are misrepresenting them, like that's not. Again, how do you prove it's not that?
I guess if the
Scientific intervention, you know, like
as an Ilanakara SP, lemon jake, for example, then potentially they're not, because it is an Ilanakara of some description.
Yeah. But how do you? I've always wondered it. I mean, obviously, you'd never get anywhere with it because it's hard to prove, and it's all down to essentially it's down to opinions and personal preference. But
I think it's down to intent. Really, is the only way really to judge it. Like, if you don't if you think that's what it is, and there isn't, I'm going to say necessarily the expectation to know, to be like super in the weeds, like. And animates is probably going to be different. And like if they're buying, those lemon jakes as lemon jakes, that's probably more the responsibility of the importer and the wholesaler to know better, because like a 17-year-old kid running an animates fish department probably can't be expected to know that. That's like an unrealistic expectation. So yeah.
But I've seen specialist fish shops selling red empress peacocks before, and I'm just like,
yeah, that's where the expectation I think should be different. Is like a specialist fish shop probably should know.
Specialist fish shop,
random animates, random animates probably can't be expected to know that.
But does that
I guess it just comes down to.
Does that then potentially fall back on the breeder that's gone, I've got a red empress, knowing too well that it's not a red empress?
Yes.
Because they've got a hybrid somewhere along the line and they're just trying to offload it?
Yes, I think so. It just goes back to whoever is trying to, like, if you're trying to, I guess, like, make money off the fish, or like trying to breed them on a more commercial scale, probably you should know what it is. And because you should be trying to, I guess, breed it to that standard of this is what a red empress is supposed to look like, And I guess it's a hard one. Like the should word is a hard one, but because obviously it's just my opinion. But that's kind of where I just think everyone should do their best, and
I have a feeling
probably impossible.
I have a feeling a lot of it comes back to, for a lot of people, it's just a fish. Why does it matter? Like, I've got my enjoyment out of these fish. I'm going to move them on because I'm getting out of the hobby. But it's just a fish. Why does it matter if I don't call this thing a whatever it is? I'm going to call it I don't know, electric blue, for example. There's a lot of electric blue and booners that hang around. There's a lot of people that aren't super deep in what they're doing, and they just call their fish by color. Like, I'm sure you've had people come into your shop and they've talked about these fish by color, and you're kind of trying to guess what they are, and they show you a photo, and it's a totally different thing altogether.
Well, that's why I generally tell people, like, especially like casual people, or like less like intense people, just write a list of like everything you have. Like if you've got like a mixed African tank and you've got like 50 fish in there, just write a list, and then when you go to sell it, you can just go through and like match them to the names, and then you'll be like pretty close. Like maybe you'll get one wrong or something, but like I think the most important part is the intent. Like if you're really trying and you make a mistake, it happens. Everyone makes mistakes, but at least you're trying. And then like if everyone was doing that, it would wipe out so much of the problem. And like the odd one floating around that's been misidentified somewhere along the line is much better than what goes on now, essentially. Because then if everyone's trying to do it properly, then it'll get caught a lot sooner, basically.
Yeah, I disagree. So there's always going to be. I've got a whole bunch of fish together that spawned. Hey, look, now I've got an electric yellow people hanging around, so to speak. And there's always going to be people that are intentionally breeding that believe what they've got is what it is, and not really caring about what's coming through along that anyway.
I believe there's a lot of people out there breeding I believe there is a bunch of people out there breeding, especially African cichlids, just purely for the money with no quality control, and they don't give a shit about anyone. And to me, I think it's dishonest, and but it's also interesting to see like breeders apply their own standards. There is no, you should get your fish from here. Like me, I wouldn't buy a mixed tank of fish, to get breeders. Like it just wouldn't. I just wouldn't even entertain across my mind unless I could trace exactly where that particular fish came from. Like I got my lithobates from a display tank, but the guy had bought all his fish off a big breeder. I knew it was a lithobates. Where'd you get that one from? I got that from so-and-so. I rang so-and-so. Did you sell a fish to this guy? He's got a list of fish he sold. Yes. Okay, cool. Sweet. I know that one's good. But most people...
Then there's the challenge there is like, because that's, where man-made versus hybrid comes in. Because, like, I'm sure you'd buy a tank full of OBs, Like, if you wanted OBs, it probably doesn't matter as much.
If I saw a cool red OB, I'd buy it.
Yeah, exactly. It's subjective, even though it's like that red OB might throw all sorts of random shit. Like, who knows? Only one way to find out. But it's about the intent. Yeah, exactly. It's about the intent.
That you can often trace back people's lineage or fish's lineage. Can you trace back from your fish? So, like, back to, you'll sell Cam a random cool-looking hybrid that he then sells on, that next person sells on and then produces from. Can you trace all the way back as well sometimes?
Well, I know where all of my fish come from. Like,
but I mean, when it's left you and then it's potentially, goes back onto the open market, Cam sold it, someone else has then sold it, someone spawned from it, and then they're producing these red empress that are clearly not red empress all the way back from there?
Nah. No, you can never tell. Never. Yeah. I could tell with some people because they show me photos of their fish and I go, I know you got that off Cam. It came from me.
Yeah.
But once they're gone, they're gone, mate. These people do what they want to with them.
And that's my point. Why you think? Yeah, sorry.
I think the sort of bad intent is kind of being overstated. Like for the vast majority of, like, pretty much, I'm going to say, especially for peacocks and haps, I'm going to say probably 95% of the ones I sell is just people to display them and enjoy them and like play with them and that. No one that and like pretty much I only sell males. Like no one's really trying to breed, so that intent is there. And then if they are getting bred with like random stuff, is like they would get bred with random stuff anyway. Like the difference between like a red hybrid and a red German red getting bred with dragon's blood female is like pretty much going to happen regardless. But if they know what they have, like they know that's a red hybrid that they're doing it with, is better than if it's under the impression it's a German red and then breeding from it and then getting random stuff. Like I think it's all about the intent. Like as long as people are being honest about it, like saying, I don't know what this is, but like look, it's got this cool pattern on it or whatever, then that's a different question.
But then old mate Jimmy comes along and goes, oh, that's a German red. I'm going to buy it off that person and put it with my German reds. And all of a sudden there's a whole lot of not German reds that are going around.
We just can't control it. There's no way you can control humans, though. Yeah. These humans do dumb stuff for their entire lives, not just with fish. And it's just what it is. Like we can't. Because I think that's going to happen
regardless. Is the problem.
It is. The market's flooded with them. We can only do what we can do. I got no problem with people keeping a cool fish as long as it's a cool fish and they don't call it anything pure.
I don't disagree with you, but
enjoy it.
After the I've got full intention. I'm only ever going to keep this as a display fish. Oh man, 2 years later, I'm getting out of the fish game. Someone comes along, buys it, and then they're moving from there.
And that's where it becomes the ethics of breeders and standards and quality control and stuff. But you can't mandate that. You can't.
But you can't control that. With you. I think it can change. But it's got to take people to do it. Like everything can change. Absolutely everything can change.
That's what I was saying. I think it comes down to education, though. Like just trying to show people like how to know what, how to be able to know what is what and like know what's going on and all that. So yeah.
I think people will. I don't think it'll ever change, but it'll get. I think some people will get on board, some people won't, and it's just as long as there's money and and stuff in it, or people just like creating stuff. They like being creative, and they like exploring stuff, and they like doing random stuff, and they
totally agree.
And people are optimists usually, so they get an orange fish. They jump on Google orange peacock or whatever, and they breed it. They're optimists. So
But
it's
you
it's
can be
just
the
humanity.
You can be the start. I'm not going to push these out of my fish room, and the next person comes along. You know what? I'm going to stand for that as well. I want to improve, and then less and less happen. There's always going to be that. I don't disagree with you, but it can be minimized by a change.
Yeah, it is, and that's why, like I say, 99% of the stuff that comes out is legit, and the stuff that's not, whatever, it's just what it is. Throwbacks and stuff. So, yeah, can only do what I can do, and that's why Cam and I are doing what we're doing. We're trying to do good stuff, good fish.
Don't disagree. I just, I don't know. Maybe it's saying we're never going to see eye to eye with.
And that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. Same with fish. People are never going to agree on fish, and it's okay.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, I think we are done. Cam's got that distant look in his eyes, like he needs to go toilet, and that happens.
I do indeed.
Just over an hour in every time. Cam gets distracted, and he just switches off and starts staring off into space. You should watch it on YouTube. You'll pick the moment when he needs to go toilet.
He has his last long rant, and then it's like that's me. I'm done. I've got everything out.
Pretty much.
He's checked out. So thanks for listening. I think we crossed 1,500 views this last week, didn't we? So that's a pretty good accomplishment.
Yesterday, I think it was. So
yeah, pretty good accomplishment.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. And Cam's bot's he's probably smart enough to do that, but I don't know if he is. So it might actually be real people out there listening. All right. So, yeah, thanks for that. And haven't had an awful lot of inquiry for the merch, so we need to sort of increase that so that Cam can actually design it. We've got some ideas. I don't think we had any feedback on the Cam being a mad scientist thing,
Yeah, we did. There is some feedback on YouTube.
Is there? Oh, I'll have to check that.
Yeah, there has been a response. You've been called
There definitely is no mad scientist about you. So, yeah. Anyway, we'll catch you guys later. Thanks for listening.
Sure.
See ya.
See you later.